Hey there. I'm finally getting the chance to test out this no-name wedge. I don't know it yet, but I'm actually here to take one of the most spectacular images that I've ever taken of two of the most beautiful nebulae in the night sky. Stick around in this video as we do some amazing astrophotography from a Bortle 3 location surrounded by lights. Hi, my name is Chris, and welcome to my channel. Hey everybody, I'm out here under a Bortle 3 sky in Minden, Ontario, right in the middle of cottage country. I have with me my V'ger rig where I'm testing out my new no-name wedge. It's the same wedge I installed in my last video, and so far it's performing beautifully. My guiding is around 1.5 arc seconds, which for the 135mm lens that I'm using is more than adequate. Polar alignment was extremely easy. The declination knob is so much easier to use than trying to fiddle with that giant lever on the Astromaster tripod that I was using before. So I'm really excited to be here. You see, I wanted to take this opportunity under this tremendously great sky to image this season's challenge object, which is SH227, this very large nebula that is right beside the Milky Way core. Unfortunately, we're getting a gibbous moon that is more than half full, and it stayed up quite late. And at the point that it set, it was actually fairly close to Antares, which made imaging that region of the sky difficult. So instead, I'm pointing my telescope at M16 and M17. That's right, I'm using a 135mm lens to get a wide view of that region of sky. There is so much nebulosity there between the Swan Nebula and the Pillars of Creation within the Eagle Nebula, and all sorts of clusters that are nearby with the background nebulas that all kind of tie together, that I'm really excited to see what this is going to give me in a Bortle 3 sky with this wide lens. Not only that, but I swapped out the regular camera that I have on this rig, which is the ZWO ASI2600MC Pro. I swapped it out for the bigger camera, the ASI2600MC, which is a larger format sensor. It's much more sensitive, and it gives much better images. So putting that camera with this Rokinon or Samyang 135mm lens on that region of sky should give me some excellent imaging for tonight. Now, I am standing at the fairgrounds because I've learned something, and that is that nowhere in cottage country is there an open field that is publicly accessible that I can find within all of Haliburton County. That's right, if you're from this region and you know of any spots aside from the Torrance Barrens Dark Sky Preserve, please let me know. And that preserve is more than an hour drive from where I'm staying. But for where I am right now, I've been driving around for the last couple of days looking for such a magical spot. And I came to a realization that everyone who has property up here wants to face south or east or west, which means that all of the publicly accessible land faces north. The only place I could find that I could set up my gear for tonight is in this big expanse of the fairgrounds, which unfortunately in the southern area, that direction is actually bordered by some sort of street lights and buildings. So be that as it may, the sky is still clearer than anything that I get back home. There's coyotes in that direction. It is around 1 o'clock in the morning or close to. I've already taken my flats, so I'm doing my UPPD matte sky flats. I've already taken my darks because I do want to process some of this data while I'm up here, so I wanted a fresh set of dark calibration frames. And now my rig is guiding its imaging, and I'm shining this bright spotlight so that I can make this brief intro and then get back to imaging. This is VGR. VGR is my Frankenstein mount. It's parts of different things that don't normally go together. Specifically, it's based on a Celestron SLT Mount that came with an SLT 102 telescope. What most people don't realize is that these mounts can actually run in equatorial mode on a wedge. You can align them using the EQ North or EQ South alignment process, and they will track the sky in equatorial mode just like any other star tracker. Not only that, but these mounts can be guided. That's right, they can hold their position using a guide scope and a guide camera. I've taken images as long as 5 minutes, but I typically do 3 minutes exposures in this way. Acting as the brains of the mount, I have a small Windows 11 mini PC. It's controlling the telescope using a Celestron telescope driver, not the typical CPWI. And currently I'm using Astrophotography tool to control the camera itself. The camera, as I mentioned before, is the ZWO ASI2600MC Pro. It is a cooled astrophotography camera with a fairly large sensor, which is currently imaging through what is considered an astrograph. This Rokinon or Samyang lens is 135mm and has a speed of f2, making it extremely fast. As it is a DSLR lens, it does need an adapter to work with the ZWO camera. Now that ZWO adapter also contains a filter tray. Even though I am at a fairly dark sky, I am using an Antlia anti-light pollution filter. Between the super fast optics, the Antlia Quad filter, and this incredible camera, I should be able to make short work of whatever target I'm imaging out here tonight. So in addition to that setup, I also have one of my Celestron Nexstar 6 SE telescopes, which I was using to do some visual astronomy. Right up until my eyepiece fogged up. So I will need to clear that up before I can do any other observation. But once I have that eyepiece sorted out, I should have a really nice night of observing while imaging. And there off in the distance are the lights that I was talking about. So this is a very large field that I'm in the middle of. Hopefully I will be here undisturbed. Although I guess if people do live around here and they see all of these lights that I'm using right now to record with, then I might expect some visitors. Hopefully not. Just look at those results I'm getting. That's a single frame. That is the Swan Nebula in the center, and just north of it, you can see the Eagle Nebula. And there's a star cluster just below. That is exactly what I'm hoping for, and which is why I'm also using that Antlia Quad filter, even though I'm under a Bortle 3 sky. Wow, that is awesome. Sun's starting to come up. The sky's getting brighter. It's around 4:45 in the morning, and the humidity has come in sometime after 4. I think I lost a bit of data there towards the end, with the sky getting quite a bit obscured. So I've packed everything up, and I am going to head back and get some sleep. In all likelihood, I'm not going to be able to process this data until I get home. Anyway, it's been a heck of a night, and I will pick this up once I've processed the data. I've done some processing, and here is the first pass results that I've run through astrometry.net, and you can really see a lot of the objects that really reside in this region. So here we have the Swan Nebula, M17, and we have the Eagle Nebula, M16. And I didn't realize this, but M18 is right below, and that is one of the Messier objects that I have yet to capture to complete my Messier catalog. Then down here, we have IC4715 or NGC 6603. So that is a small Sagittarius star cloud, also known as a Messier 24. And here we have Messier 25. So a number of different open clusters in this region as well. And here's what's really cool, and this is what I was hoping to find. When we image these objects at, let's say, 1,000 millimeters, my field of view at 1,000 millimeters is typically not much bigger than this circle. And there's usually that drop-off of vignetting around the edges, especially if you're imaging from a highly light-polluted environment. But seeing this image like this in a wider context, with the stars removed, you can start to see this nebulosity that actually shows that this is a connected region of gas, which I think is really cool. So again, with the stars removed, you can really see up here, you've got the pillars of creation within the Eagle Nebula, and then down here you've got this nebulous gas that stretches all the way down, or I guess up, whichever way you want to look at it, from the Swan Nebula to the Eagle Nebula. And that, I think, is extremely interesting and wonderful to see. Doing a bit more actual research on the region, there's a real physical relationship between M16 and M17, and they both lie roughly the same distance within the Sagittarius Carina arm. However, each of these nebulas is its own separate star-forming region, and it's lit up by its own young star cluster. So here we've got M16, which is ionized through star cluster NGC 6611. Let's just go back here. And then we've got M17 down here, which is ionized by cluster NGC 6618. One interesting hypothesis is that there may be a common origin, and that M16 and M17 sit near the edge of a much larger shell of atomic molecular gas. I'm going to post my final processed image to the end of this video. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and clear skies.